and welcome to the Penn Bridge dedication ceremony. I would like to express my gratitude and honor to have been given the opportunity to say a few words on behalf of the Reading Police Department and myself. I want to start by giving you a brief history of how I met Officer Scott Wertz. Back in 1997, Officer Scott Wertz and I were in the same Reading Police Academy, class 1997-1. During that time, we became good friends, and he introduced me to his family. Officer Scott Wertz was an interesting character, to say the least. Because he grew up in the city of Reading, he was well known. Officer Scott Wertz was one of those officers that really connected with the city residents. He was well respected by his peers and by those he engaged with. He was down to earth when he spoke with people and always respectful. In his eyes, everyone was equal. He loved his career and respected everyone he encountered during his shift. He embraced the diversity of the city. Officer Scott Wertz was very reasonable and fair to all those he served. He was an exemplary Reading police officer, taking pride in his career. I reflect on how the years have gone by since that senseless and tragic day of August 6, 2006, when Officer Scott Wertz, my friend and partner, died in the line of duty, doing what he loved to do and for what he committed himself. His commitment and heroism will forever be remembered. So, as we dedicate today the Penn Street Bridge to Officer Scott Wertz, let us all remind ourselves of the hero that we are honoring today. And these are the words of our Chief Reading Police, Javier Ruiz. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Nick. Welcome, everyone, to the Police Officer Scott A. Wertz Memorial Bridge Sign Unveiling Ceremony. I'm State Senator Judy Schwenk, and I am really thrilled and grateful that all of you could be with us here today, because this is a very special occasion. It's certainly an emotional day for the Wertz family, and I'm sure for many of you who knew Officer Wertz. But I hope that this can also be a happy day where we come together and celebrate the fact that with the naming of the bridge, you see, well, we were supposed to be upstairs, but you'll see when we get outside, in honor of Scott Wertz, his legacy will live on. The Penn Street Bridge for decades has been the gateway into the city of Reading and an iconic structure known to all who call Berks County home. And think of the visitors who also come to our city. It's the main artery that people come in. I believe naming this bridge in honor of Officer Wertz is a fitting way to honor a man who served his community with pride and distinction, a man of exceptional character that earned the respect of his fellow law enforcement officers and those around him, and a man who was a devoted father and husband. Officer Wertz's death is a painful reminder of the risks police officers across the country take each day to keep us safe. I'm sure the call Officer Wertz and his partner were responding to in the early morning hours of August 6, 2006, was like many they received before. And as we all know, all it takes is one individual with a disregard for the safety and well-being of others and human life to create a tragic incident. We cannot remove the pain felt by the Wertz family, the Reading Police Department, and the many individuals who called Scott Wertz a friend. However, we can ensure that he's remembered for his service to our community for decades to come, When folks enter or exit the city of Reading, there's signs on both sides of the bridge, and we'll go out to unveil the sign this morning. They'll be greeted by these signs. I'm proud that we could get this done. Seeing all the folks who took the time to be here and hearing from people about how great this is for our community has only reinforced to me that this was a worthy and long overdue tribute to Officer Scott Wertz. Next, you'll hear from someone who I truly admire for many years now. In the face of a very tragic situation, she's carried herself with grace and a strength that many of us, I don't know that we could call upon, and she's truly inspiring. Please join me in welcoming Trish Wertz to the podium. Trish?
I just want to start by thanking everyone for coming. This is a very special honor for Scott, so I appreciate all of you being here. It's not how these men died that made them heroes. It's how they lived. This quote is engraved on the National Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington, D.C. This quote has always had an impact on me and is the best way that I can think of to describe Scott and how he lived. While I didn't know Scott growing up in the city, I know he loved this city. From his days growing up on Birch, Carpenter, and 12th Street, to him dying on 8th Street. I first saw Scott in June of 1992 when my brother and his cousin were leaving for Paris Island. We met 3 months later in September of 1992, and we both fell hard for one another. Man, that smile in those dark eyes. He even let me drive his IROC. I was the sometimes naive country girl from Hamburg, trying to tame that city boy. When I met him, he was a correctional officer. I can't say he loved the job or getting up for the start of a 6 a.m. shift, but he met some of his best friends there. He dealt with a lot of inmates there that he knew from the city and built relationships with them that helped him later on when he became a cop. Working at the prison was a means to an end, since all he ever wanted to do was to be a cop for the city he loved. In 1994, he took a leave of absence from the prison and put himself at the Reading Police Academy while bartending at night. For the older people here, remember Subs and Suds at 10th and Olney? That year, we also welcomed our oldest son, Jared. June 3rd of 95, we got married, and oh, what a day that was. From the trolley ride to doing the Pee Wee Herman dance across the head table. 2 years later, Scott's dream became a reality when he got hired by the Reading Police Department and had to go through the academy again, much to his dismay. I will never forget how happy he was to be living his dream wearing that uniform. 2 years later, in 1999, we welcomed our younger son, Josh. I can't tell you how happy he was to be a dad, especially a dad of boys. It's not appropriate to say what his thoughts were on being a girl dad. Sorry, Brian. He loved his boys to death and was so proud of them. He would be even prouder of the young men they have become. Scott was a social butterfly, the life of the party. His smile would light up a room. He loved attention and loved being the center of attention for those who knew him well. He loved us. He loved to spend time with his boys and anything they were doing, spending time with family, hanging out with his friends and couples we knew. He loved chicken wings, especially Monday nights at the Peanut Bar, Beckett's Chicken and Dell's, Coors Light, and rum and cokes. He also loved the Dallas Cowboys, sorry Eagles fans, the New York Yankees, playing softball, coaching the boys' sports, Miami, Squiggy, I see, there's some memories there, and warm weather. He hated the cold. I can't speak much about how Scott was a cop, so I will leave that to Chris when he speaks, but I know he wanted to put the bad guys away and protect the good ones. He always treated the good people the way they deserved to be treated. He lived by if you give respect, you get respect. He definitely had a positive impact on all of the lives he touched and the city he loved so dearly. Was he perfect? No. He was just a man living his dream, doing his job that he loved for the city he loved. He is a hero, and we miss him. And right now, in true Scott fashion, he would give you that smile, and he would say, "It's about time." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trish. You brought Scott to life for us, the story of who he was and those wonderful memories that you have. Thank you so much for that. And now for remarks, please join me in welcoming criminal investigator Chris Jenkins. Chris?
Good morning, everybody. Trish, Ms. Schwank, I'm sorry. I'll get that right sooner or later. Mr. Mayor, Nick, Mr. Adams. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Chris Jenkins, and for the last 21 or so years, I've been a cop with the Reading Police Department. A few weeks ago, Trish reached out to me and asked me to speak here today before all of you, and my first thought was, what the heck am I going to talk about that already hasn't been said about Scott at least 600 times? So I reached out to Trish again, and I said, like, what exactly are you looking for from me? Like, what do you want me to talk about? Where do you want me to go with things? And she threw out this quote at me, and then after that, it all came together, and she already quoted it, and it's not how these officers died that made them heroes, it's how they lived. So we hear quotes and phrases over and over again for various things, and, you know, most people, they're just words with no meaning behind them. A lot of people just say them to feel like they want to fit in or to be trendy or something like that. But when you truly sit down and think about the words in these quotes, it gives you a new perspective, it gives you a new meaning, it gives you a new understanding of what that truly means. I first met Scott in 2002. It was at Angelica Park, oddly enough, at a softball game. We wound up being on the same team. I was still playing, it was a team mixed from the juvenile detention center guys and, you know, whoever else, the guy who was running the team wanted to be on it. I was actually in the academy. I was hired by Reading, and, you know, that's where our friendship began, I would say. When I came out of the academy and onto the street, Scotty, he was assigned to D platoon. Which, for those of you who don't know, that was 7 at night to 3 in the morning for the most part. He loved being a police officer, and his usual assignment was what he affectionately referred to as robbery homicide. Now, that wasn't exactly an official call sign that we had, but that's what he liked to call himself and what he did. It was kind of a detail to address problem areas, things of that nature, kind of like what we do now, park and walks, things like that. There were times where he was assigned the wagon, and when he was in the wagon, he didn't really like the wagon so much on D platoon because he couldn't go out and do his thing and do what he does. And I always and me and everybody else used to bust his butt and say, you know, did you do something wrong to Daddy today? Did he put you in the wagon? Like, you know, what's going on here? Eventually, after D platoon, he was assigned to the Auto Theft Task Force, where he spent the rest of his career. He loved doing his thing at work. Scott was a worker. There's no other way to put it. I mean, he came to work, he did his job, he loved doing his job. You know, he was one of the guys who just loved doing his thing at work. He was unafraid to do what was necessary in this job. And those of you who were there and been there and done it know what I'm talking about. He was one of the guys you could count on. He was one of the guys who you wanted with you when things went south out in the street. You wanted people like him with you at the many moments of truth that we face on this job. Whether or not you worked with Scott or knew him outside of work, you knew where you stood with him. I mean, he didn't pull any punches. If you were on his team, you were on his team. And if you weren't on his team, you're not on his team. And then there were times where if you weren't on his team and you did something stupid, he let you hear about it. He didn't pull any punches with anybody, that's for sure. He worked hard and he played hard as well. In other words, Scott lived. He lived his life. He enjoyed his life. He enjoyed his family. He enjoyed his friends, and he really enjoyed his job. He also enjoyed his wings. One of the things he would do many times, I remember, he'd call me at home. I worked midnight shift. And he'd call me and say, I'm going to Dell's. What's your order? Dell's was a bar at 7th and Laurel. And he would always wind up getting his food there. There were times that I came out of roll call and I got my wings. But then there were times where I came out of roll call and he would tell me, they were getting cold, you took too long, so I ate them. So shame on me for taking too long to get my food. He also loved to play softball in his off time. And as I mentioned earlier, in the years following our first meeting, we continued to play together, and Scott eventually took over the team that we were playing on. And even though he thought he was Derek Jeter at shortstop, not so much, he wasn't. He tried to be, but he had ways to go, and he was always reminded of that by me or other guys on his team. He loved to compete. He hated to lose. He was a great competitor and a pretty good player in his own right, but again, Derek Jeter, not so much. And speaking of Derek Jeter, I guess now would be a good time to talk about the fact that Scotty was an avid Yankees fan, as well as a card-carrying member of America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. I remember the trip we took back to Texas to see the Cowboys play the Eagles on Monday Night Football. It was a great trip. Happy hour in the hotel was free for 2 hours every day. You can't beat that, right? We toured the stadium, we went to Gillies, rode a bull. He almost got injured that night. We won't say how, but the thing that cracks me up to this day about that trip, though, is Dallas got smoked. They got killed. The bus trip back to the hotel was interesting, to say the least. The Eagles fans on the bus were doing their stupid chants and all the normal things they do to irritate everybody, and Scott wanted to fight every single one of them. The look on his face the whole ride home got worse as time went on. I don't think I've ever seen him as maroon as I did that night. He turned around at one point and he said, I'm going to lose it if they don't shut up. He said, I'm seriously going to fight every one of these people on this bus. And I just said, God, don't do that. We're in Texas, man. Can we just go back to Pennsylvania? Definitely the angriest I've ever seen him. He did make it back to the hotel, and there was no incident, so that was all good. Now, with all that being said, Scott did have his flaws. The two most glaring ones that I can remember was his beer of choice was Coors Light, and the other one was he was a huge Miami Hurricanes fan. Sorry, fellas. I tried not to hold it against them, except the times that Florida State would play Miami, and we would steer clear of each other during those days and during that time. So every year on August 6th and May 5th, I have my honorary Coors Light in his honor. And in case you guys were wondering, Scott's birthday is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, very fitting. Which brings me to one of my favorite memories, his 40th birthday party. In the days when people could pull practical jokes on each other without someone getting bent out of shape, Scott loved his practical jokes. Trish wanted to have a surprise party for his 40th birthday, and it just so happens that my birthday wasn't too far behind his. So between my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and Trish, they planned this scheme to have Scott and our other buddy Matt take me out for drinks and eventually to the fire company where there was going to be a surprise party in his honor. Only the party was for him, and I was in on the whole thing. So the day comes for the party. The boys show up, they pick me up, they take me out, and we go out and start doing our thing. Scott digs in his pocket, and he starts paying for everything. And if I remember right, I don't think Matt paid for a thing that night either. Yeah. So Scott's shelling out all this money for Matt and I, and the night's going on, and I see him, he's getting itchy. He's getting ready. He knows he's got to be somewhere. He's like, we got to go. And I'm like, we got to go for it. Why can't we just stay here and hang out? So we dig in his pocket some more. It was getting to the time where we needed to be at the fire company, and I'm sorry, I lost my place. Oh, the more itchy he got to leave, the more I was ready to just sit back, and I wasn't ready to go. So eventually we leave. We went to Kenhurst Fire Company. He says, we're going to Kenhurst Fire Company. I said, why the hell are we going there? I said, What are we going there for? Let's go somewhere fun. He's like, no, we have to go there for one, and then we can leave. And I said, okay, fine. So I said, it's my birthday outing. Why do I don't want to go there. No, you have to go there. Okay, fine, whatever. So I agreed, we went. Now, prior to this, Trish and Veronica, they were worried that he knew what was going on. Well, at that moment where he was digging in his pockets and paying for everything, because, that didn't happen quite often, I knew we had him. So, excuse me. We walk in the fire company, everybody else surprised. Scott turns around, starts jumping up and down like a monkey and pointing at me and going, I got you. And I go, dummy, look around. This isn't for me, this is for you. And the look on his face, he looked around, he saw Trish, he saw everybody, he goes, and he turns and he realized what was going on. He looks at me and he goes, you guys are sons of bitches. You made me pay for everything. And I told him, hey, the moral of my story, dude, don't eat my wings, fella. Don't eat my wings. I could go on and on with stories about Scott, but I will say that I truly miss the days of him riding his Harley to my house when I was asleep to come in and try to rip me out of bed to go do whatever he had planned that day. I missed the phone calls in the middle of the night telling me how much of a turd I was because I didn't do what he wanted me to do that day. I miss hearing how ridiculous I was for giving Veronica a key when he specifically instructed me never to even give her a drawer. You can't turn back time, you can only go forward and celebrate the fact that you considered him your friend and you knew that the honor was all yours to be his buddy. So the Police Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., they have 4 bronze lions there. There's 2 males, 2 females. And each of them are watching over a pair of lion cubs. And underneath each one of those statues is carved a different quotation. One of them, I already read to you, Tricia already read to you. Some of the other 2 that specifically deal with what I'm talking about today and why we're here today is, in valor there is hope. And the second one, the wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Scott was a lion. He was a lion outside of work, and he was a lion at work. Unfortunately, it was the lion in Scott that ultimately led to his murder on 8th Street, August 6th. That's who he was. That's all he knew. I mean, he did his job, and he did it well. If you never had to run toward grave danger, pull out your gun, or make life-altering decisions in milliseconds, you can't begin to fathom what all of this entails. It's not a dig at anybody. It's not a we are better than you type thing. It's just something that needs to be experienced to fully understand and appreciate what kind of people police officers need to be. Scott was that guy. And for about 2 years after he died, I refused to drive down the 100 block of 8th Street because I couldn't do it. There was twice, though, during that time. Once was the night it actually happened and I was there. And the other one was when I was tasked to drive Trish and the kids to where he passed away. But for the next 17 years after that, every day, I walked to and from work up and down the 700 block of Washington Street. I get to the corner of 8th and Wash, and I look down where it happened every day. That's my reminder. I said I wasn't going to do this. It's my daily reminder of how all of this can end in an instant. As I leave work every day, I will have another reminder when I pass this sign on the bridge formerly known as the Penn Street Bridge, as will all who pass by from today on. So I'll leave you all with this. As a criminal investigator, the highest honor bestowed upon you is to investigate the death of another human being. As truly humbling and special as that is, it pales in comparison to the honor that I have had to speak and present Scott's family his Officer of the Year award back in 2006, and the honor that I have speaking and standing in front of all of you today. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to all who made this permanent remembrance of Scott possible. I want everybody to have a happy Thanksgiving, and for all my brothers and sisters in attendance today, please stay safe. Remember, never go to bed mad. Kiss your loved ones every day and tell them how much they mean to you and how much you love them. Live your lives to the fullest and enjoy the short time you have on this planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. There's that old saying that words from the heart go straight to the heart. Those were words from the heart. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to invite our Berks County District Attorney, John Adams, to come to the podium, please. John?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for those words about Scott. He was a great police officer. Knew him well. First of all, though, I would like to thank Senator Schwenk for sponsoring this legislation to rename this bridge in Scott Wertz's honor. And not only sponsoring the legislation, getting this legislation over the finish line, which we all know sometimes is difficult today. To Trish and family, I'm honored to share some thoughts about Scott with all of you. Scott was a great police officer. I remember seeing him, having cases with him, cases against him. He gave the ultimate sacrifice to protect our community. Too often, we forget the bravery that law enforcement and all first responders display each and every day. And we have to remember the impact that his death had on our community, especially our law enforcement community. We were hurt. We were broken. And it was tough. I remember where I was at when I heard about this tragedy. And now, each and every day, as we pass over this bridge that many of us cross on a daily basis, we will remember the meaning of sacrifice, service, and most importantly, Scott Wertz's contribution and ultimate sacrifice that he gave to protect our community. And I know that there are many members of law enforcement here today, and I know that each and every day I respect the work that you do, the sacrifices that you make, and quite frankly, the fact that unfortunately in our society, which has become too violent, that you put your life on the line. And I thank you for that service. It is necessary and needed each and every day. And now, as we pass over this bridge, let us remember each and every day the sacrifices of Scott Wertz and others who have put themselves in danger during their daily lives to protect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, DA Adams. Appreciate your remarks and your ongoing service to our county as well and entire community. Now, please join me in welcoming our mayor, the mayor of the city of Reading, Eddie Moran.
Good morning. We're here to pay tribute to the life and legacy of police officer Scott Wertz, who lost his life in the line of duty 17 years ago, as he has been mentioned one too many times today. The dedication to the Penn Street Bridge is in his honor, and it's very fitting tribute to a man who dedicated his entire adult life to serving and protecting our community. Officer Wertz, exemplary service over the 9 years with the police department here in Reading demonstrated his commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of the citizens of Reading. It's clear that he not only earned the respect of his peers, but also left a lasting impact on the community he served. The passing of Officer Wertz is undoubtedly a tragic chapter in our city's history. Events like this bridge dedication serves as a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made by those in law enforcement, to say the least. The strength displayed by the Wertz family is truly commendable. Thanks to their determination, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has preserved Officer Wertz's legacy of public service for future generations with the sign that will be unveiled in just a few minutes. As the community gathers to reflect on Officer Wertz's contributions and remember his selfless service, may this ceremony also serve as a moment to appreciate the resilience and unity that binds the city together in times of joy and sorrow. The naming of the Penn Street Bridge stands as a permanent testament to Officer Wertz's dedication and sacrifice, a symbol that would endure a reminder of the community's gratitude for his service. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all the Reading police officers, past and present, along with any law enforcement officer, for their selfless commitment, service to our great city. I recognize the hard work you do every day, and the fact that you put your lives on the line for the safety of others. I want to thank the investigator for reminding the brothers and sisters that wear blue to acknowledge to their families, because I was a bridge and tunnel police officer for a short period of time in New York City, and I remember how important that was for me. That if I left home without telling my wife and my little guys how much I loved them that day, I would immediately call, whether after roll call or during my shift. And I didn't know what had transpired that day. So my heart is with you. I'll close by saying thank you to the Wertz family for continuing to ensure that the life, legacy, and service provided by Officer Scott Wertz will always be remembered and honored, and we will never, never forget him. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Moran. We're soon going to go out to the bridge, our newly named bridge, and the Wertz family will unveil the sign. Before we do, we will enjoy another special song by Dave Bray, who's done a wonderful job for us today. But I'd also like to acknowledge, it's a little hard to see because it's dark out there, but I do know that my colleague and friend, State Representative Johanny Cepeda Freites is here, who represents the district as well as our County Commissioner Chair, Christian Weinbach, is here, and some staff from some of the other commissioners' offices, Commissioner Michael Rivera and Commissioner Lucine Sahelnik. Forgive me if I missed anybody out there. I truly apologize for that. So Dave, if you will join us on the stage again, and when he is done, let's just remain seated for a few minutes and allow the Wertz family to go out first to head to the sign. Thank you so much.
Check 1, 2, thank you. Can we get another round of applause for the dignitaries and of course, appreciate the Wertz family here that's coming through today. You know, the song, I didn't realize until now, I didn't know that I just want to give you just a brief background. But in 2016, I received an email from a friend who was a Marine friend of mine who had shared with me an email of a law enforcement officer's last call that was being given by a dispatcher. And in the military, we have a roll call. So if we have a fallen soldier, wherever we are, we always do a roll call, which in order we muster the troops, and we end up basically calling all those names out until we get to the person who's missing. But a final call or a last call for a law enforcement officer is done on the air and where they read the end of watch. So in this email, there was this interesting voice memo that was sent to me, and it was a dispatcher reading an end of watch for Officer Brad Fox, who was also a local law enforcement officer who lost his life in Pennsylvania, but he was also a Marine. And after I really sat and listened to that, I was shaken to my core about how distraught the dispatcher was, and I thought about Brad and his family. And I wrote a song called Last Call, which I've performed all over the world and all over Washington, D.C. for the National Memorial. But after I played that song a few times, and after many families and surviving families had heard it, they asked, would you please write a song for us, the survivors who are left behind after we lose our loved ones, to give those words back to our fallen hero. So this song is called Survivor, and Trish reminded me that I played it for her one day in the ring. And for all of you who understand and know the pain that comes with becoming and earning the title of Survivor, the song's for you. You all please rise. If you would please sing. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. And I was blind, but now I can see. I was lost, but now I can see.
Thank you, Dave. And again, thank you everyone who was here. This is so special. I'm lost for words right at the moment. Trish, thank you again, and all of our speakers who were here for us today. If you would like to head out to the bridge now, and we're going to unveil the sign on the
And this is appropriate because sometimes people want to do all kinds of things and name this, but this one is about as appropriate as appropriate.
You have the, you got the wireless mic in there. Do you want me to grab it? Oh, I'll go back.